Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. We're going to wrap up today with a special selection, which is where one of you tell me exactly what it is I need to check out. Today's comes at us from Steven. Hey Bryan, please react to two connected Obscure Sphinx songs, Hope and Limbo. Though Hope is building into Limbo, please pause at the end of Hope for discussion. This is unique ambient doom sludge post-metal, a study in minimalism and slow burn with exquisite vocals by Sophia Frost. So that's what we're going to be getting into today, is some Obscure Sphinx, which in the past I've enjoyed their work. In fact, their latest EP, Emover, is that what it's called? That was a really good EP. But I haven't heard anything else from them aside from a single track I think that we've reacted to. There is some additional context to this. In fact, Steven has given me paragraphs upon paragraphs of information about this, and I really appreciate it. Steven is, well, like me, a rather verbose individual with a strong passion for music, and it's always a joy chatting with them. But if there's anything in there that they originally said to me that I think is worth bringing up in the context of analysis, I will certainly do that. But just to kick things off and try to get this reaction going somewhere, since we're still in the intro, I do want to add one thing, that this album, Thaumaturgy 2, is only 3 songs long. We're going to be listening to tracks 2 and 3. The first track is called Cold Waters, and it is, as Steven described it, not as compositionally interesting as these two, but that it does set up the story for this trilogy, stating that Cold Waters has a theme of cold water being submerged in it and drowning. It says that cold waters is meant to be metaphorical, possibly relating to a bad relationship. And that Cold Waters lyrically only has a few lines in here about water filling up the lungs and how cold they are. Now, Cold Waters does connect into Hope. We're going to hear some of the musical ideas at the beginning of this track, and we are also going to hear the vocalist gasping for air as they have presumably finally surfaced from beneath the water and are no longer drowning. That's where our story kicks off. Let's dive into Hope and see where Obscure Sphinx takes us with this one. So aside from the haunting guitar giving us that single note, we also have the vocals, of course, gasping for air, but a white noise, just a hiss in the background. And then we had that that rhythmic cadence. Very textured. The single chord on the guitar riff certainly felt like waiting in the darkness. but there's momentum now. There's still tension, but we're getting somewhere. Drastic timbre shift right there. I mean, from a certain perspective, this could be a weight being lifted, left with something lighter, but it could also be a shining light in the darkness too. Something about this chord moving into that chord feels like that really popular Red Hot Chili Pepper song. I wonder if it's the same interval and the same type of movement. interesting to hear the vocals become stronger in their delivery. There's still breathiness and reverb to them, but there's more physicality than when we started. There it is. I was wondering when the brighter guitar was going to come back with those two notes. Yeah, what's the sizzle in the background? We were getting a little bit of it. It might have been a cymbal with some production placed on it. Yeah, okay, we have this physicality build up with the toms underneath everything, but the rising volume of the instruments. There's the distorted guitar. And the two higher pitch sounds with the tremolo picking fading out while these massive guitars take over the sounds. All right. I kind of want to let that keep rolling, but I was asked to give my thoughts after Hope. And, you know, the next track's 21 minutes long. So taking a moment here to get my thoughts on Hope before I forget it is good. You know, usually I can keep memory of a song for, 15, 20 minutes. I talk about music a long time after we finish listening to it. But if I put more music in my head, it's going to push the old stuff out. And 20 more minutes of music is definitely going to have me forgetting some of the details of Hope. So, yeah, let's talk about this a little bit. It is definitely a slow-paced exercise in minimalism and slow burn. I think it does a great job of crafting this atmosphere, though. The opening sound just being a low guitar. Lots of reverb, and this like delay going on, a little bit of an echo behind it. The fuzz, the buzz, this rhythmic taka 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 kind of thing, and the shallow breathing. Well, it's not really shallow breathing. I suppose it is gasp. Gasping for air, I think, is a really good way of describing the vocals at the beginning of this track. It certainly feels like the aftermath of something. And like I mentioned, a waiting or a wallowing around in this darkness, just really standing within this for a long time. It sets the scene, or it sets the stage for everything. We do get some more guitar work off of this, and to me this always felt like a building. Finally standing up on your feet after this traumatic event and taking that step forward. Preparing to put what just happened behind you. And so the guitar begins to ramp up its intensity a little bit. The timbre stays the same, the range of notes stay the same. It still captures a rather dark vibe in general, but it is momentous. Now we have directionality, we have linearity to the notes. It implies movement. From here, we eventually get a twinkling guitar sound. A bass guitar comes in underneath and supports it. It feels positive. If nothing else, it feels lighter. I had mentioned around this time that it felt like a weight had been lifted off of the narrator, or possibly that there was a light piercing through the darkness. I think even just having the visual imagery of somebody coming out of the water and gasping for air after having, been drowning. When I listen to the music with that in mind, I think of a midnight beach. I'm pretty sure I've told something along this lines of this before, but something I used to really like to do in college with my bandmates at the time when I was in a band was head over to the beach over on the East Coast, and we'd go out late at night, usually depart around 7 or 8. Florida weather can be kind of brutal, but by that time at night, it started to cool down a little bit. Windows down as we get on the I don't know, is it a highway? I don't think it's a highway. There's no lights on it though. It's just a straight shot to the East Coast. And windows down, sun's going down, beautiful scenery in the sky, cool breeze in your hair, pumping tunes. I mean, you get to the beach though, after a couple hours, sundown. We'd stay out there till like 10, 11, sometimes even midnight, and it's just a void. It is just this pitch black thing in front of you. If you look back, yeah, you can see the town, the city. There's lights coming from there. It's not like it's perfectly pitch black because, there's still some light coming from there. But honestly, you can see the sand. You can't really see the water coming up on the sand, though. It's too dark for that. And honestly, if your feet are in the water, it's, crashing up a little bit, touching your feet, you can't see more than a foot in front of you, 2 feet in front of you, give or take. So it's just this pitch black emptiness. It is a fantastic experience, I think, to kind of come to the edge of light, the edge of vision. If you can ever find a beach that's kind of farther away from a city and doesn't have as much light pollution going on there, and you can just get to that pitch blackness, no light sources anywhere, it's an experience. Go out there with friends, scream into the void, get your worries and your fears off your chest. It's a good experience, but I feel so much of that visual here. Someone washing up on a shore and just kind of being in pitch blackness, a moon there, sure, maybe straight up above, but not really casting enough light to see anything. It's just dark everywhere. Where do you go from here? All you know is you're on land. Can't really see too far though, and I think the guitar does a fantastic job of crafting this pitch blackness, but then this bright guitar. Like a single light, something to follow at least. A direction. That's what a lot of the beginning half of this song felt like to me. And it's very visceral. I could see so much of it in my head. And honestly, it brought back so many great memories too. That have nothing to do with drowning in pitch blackness on a beach, but it did bring back memories though. We have so much stuff going on around this though. That original low end guitar sound that gave us a little bit of melodic movements kind of drifts away. The past we're leaving behind and we're starting a new present, looking towards a new future. But every action that we take has to be built off of where we've come from. Every choice we make has context of who we are, and who we are is based on the actions we have made. It's based off the consequences of our actions. It's based off of past things that were completely outside of our control. Our past controls our future in immediately noticeable ways. And so when a new guitar comes in underneath this to help take us to our next destination, it is of course still a really low, fuzzy, dark guitar. But instead of being in sharp contrast to this brighter sound, it supports it. It works around it rhythmically. It supports it harmonically. The bass guitar comes in and gives us these really strong pedal tones to give us a solid foundation for this. This is when the vocals come in. There's something exceptionally melancholic about all of this. The heavy reverb on it, the intense amount of breathiness, which I think plays into the idea of just having caught your breath, having possibly thought you were going to die, but making it, trying to figure out what to do with that. But as the song goes on, it becomes stronger. We have new guitar lines introduced. They kind of bring in size and weight underneath everything. That twinkling brightness it teeters. Sometimes it's in, sometimes it's not. I thought that was an interesting decision to make. Almost as if whatever it represents, possibly a type of Hope, as the song is called, it fades and reignites. But one thing I did notice is that the vocals become more prominent. There is still a breathiness to them and an airiness to them, and there's still a lot of reverb on them as well, but what starts out something like this comes into more form like this later on into the track. It is a drastic change in stature, in feeling, in delivery, in presence. It feels like someone becoming more sure of themselves. This whole song, I think, is a basically getting back up on your feet and moving forward with your life again after a really dark time. And I think it shows that harmonically, melodically, rhythmically, production wise, both in like the production, post production, the digital stuff, and the timbre of these instruments. The vocal is changing the way that their voice sounds over time. It's an incredible display of telling this journey over 15 minutes of mostly repetitive music. This is definitely a song that is where it's much larger than the sum of its parts. There was one really interesting thing in here, though. There's a lot of guitar lines. And here's a little bit of background context for this. This whole album is a bit of a departure for the band. They wanted to do some ambient stuff. They worked on 3 songs, went into the studio to rehearse them. They recorded the rehearsal and just never stopped playing. They recorded all 3 in sequence in a single take, just live there in the studio. And they liked the take enough to just leave it. They never went back to re-record anything, and they did some live shows of it, and then eventually they released the album. It says it was recorded in 2018 and released in 2021. Now, they only have one guitarist, and Steven had mentioned that he heard a couple of guitar parts in here, which, of course, there's certainly sections with 3 guitar parts, 2 to 3, I think. And he didn't quite know what was going on, how they did that, if they never went back to redo anything. My guess is going to be loops, though, because every single new guitar part came in after another one had been established. It's not like we ever got 2 new ideas simultaneously. We would play a line for minutes at a time, and then a new line would come in, and we get that for minutes, and then a new line would come in, we would get that for several minutes. Even the twinkling guitar, wouldn't even need to replay that. As long as the loop is saved, you just disable it and then you re-enable it. So I'm going to assume looping on this one. It makes the most sense. But otherwise, yeah, this sounds fantastic. It's not usually my jam. But I think this is one of those cases where it's going to be an album. I'm going to have to go back and listen to Cold Water. I'm kind of mad, kicking myself here. I should have just done, how long was it? Oh, okay. It was another 20 minutes. Okay. There was a part of me during that reaction. I was like, dude, I should have just done Cold Waters. I know it wasn't paid for in the special selection. I should have just done it anyways. You know, we're listening to 66% of an album. Just put the other part in. This is already going to be a rather big video. If it was like 10 minutes, I'd really be upset. But I think I made peace with this. It's 20 minutes long. But I think I will go back and listen to it on my own eventually. Because I think this is going to be an album that I'm really glad I listened to once. I don't know if it's something I'd come back to, but it's emotionally evocative. It's visually evocative. Limbo, I'm expecting some crazy stuff. I mean, we had screams right there at the beginning. This is going to be a wild track to follow up on Hope. And maybe it's going to lean more into a bit more of the typical side that I expect from Obscure Sphinx, with a little bit more riffage to it. Although, as Steven mentioned, that they went into these songs wanting to write stuff that's more ambient. So maybe my expectations should still be something close to hope, but maybe heavier. But yeah, I think I'm going to really enjoy this thematically and artistically. I just don't know if it's going to be something I want to come back to very often, especially given its heavy weight thematically, lyrically, musically, but also it's a very slow burn, and those are tough for me to get around to and really enjoy. Let me hit some lyrics on Hope, and then we'll dive into Limbo. All right, here we have a little bit of a theme of rebirth and growth, and distance. I think that's another important aspect here. It's only 2 stanzas long, and if you remember, it still took up 3 minutes of time, but each syllable had so much weight put on it. Many of them just held out for such a long amount of time to match the slow ambience of the track. It says, "On the first day I died, counting the stars in your eyes, then hope ended with underthrows calling down for the last time." I think this is interesting, kicking it off with "the first day I died," as if to imply that death came over multiple days. I like that. It adds time to the equation. It isn't just, you know, things happened, I was heartbroken, and then I moved on. It's like this pain lasted a long time. It says, "On the first day, I was counting the stars in your eyes, looking at hope, positivity, direction, even. North Star is actually the North Star, sure, but multiple constellations are used in order uh, uh, to know where you're going, to give direction. The stars are lights, but they're guidance too. It's all of this kind of wrapped up in one." She says, "I was counting the stars in your eyes, and then hope ended with underthrows." I don't know what that's supposed to mean other than missing, right? To not get something to the distance it's supposed to. Hope ended by not having enough of it, possibly. It says, "calling down for the last time." The next stanza says, "The next day I ripped off my gown, covered less than I grew. Can you, hopeless in your crown, at the very least, can you love anything that you've wanted?" This is very biting, very scathing. Just the concept of, you were my everything. You gave me direction, purpose. You were the stars of my life. You have a crown, right? You're a king of your world. And despite that, can you even love anything in your life? I think it points to, at least from the perspective of our narrator, a rather brutal end to the relationship. Maybe one that felt like a gut punch. They certainly feel betrayed, though. But the idea of ripping off the gown and it now covers less than I grew. I think that's interesting because one, it's a shedding of the old. If he has a crown and she has a gown, that's a king and queen kind of imagery. So she gets rid of that. And the clothes that she has left after ripping that is less clothes than she grew. And I like this imagery of having grown since that day, that there's so little left of the clothing, the metaphorical connection to that relationship, that she's grown so much since that as a person emotionally. In fact, even listening to the vocals, at the beginning, they're very timid, very soft. This is very much, at that time, you were my world. And that was it. And there's like no control, no authority over their own life. They were, as far as they could see, part of another person's story. Without that other person, they're now meaningless. What are they? Who are they? That lack of personal knowledge, that lack of self comes through in the timidness, in the ethereal element of the vocals. But the second stanza is where the vocals became very powerful, dominant. They became solidified and physical. There is now a sense of self here. They have grown from that. They have become someone new, someone that they can trust themselves. They've become their own person with their own story, not connected to someone else. And that whatever remnants they still have from that old relationship, from that past life of theirs, is so minimal. There's so little of it that's still a part of them now. Just fantastic, man. 9 lines. 9 lines. So much said with it. All right. 20 minutes of music ahead of us still. Let's get into this. We're going to check out Limbo. I'll rewind it that last second, just so we can kind of get the very beginning of this. All right. Let's kick it. Ooh, there's some eeriness going on here. It's interesting too, if Cold Waters is the despair and hope is the growth out of that, Limbo comes after hope. Is that a synth or is that still a guitar? I don't hear the attack of the guitar in it. I don't hear the guitar timbre in it. But there could just be a lot of effects. It does have like a bounciness, or kind of hits under the note and bounces into it. A lot of fuzz, distortion, white noise on the outsides. Of course, the screaming. Oh, is that actually a vocoder? Actually, I think it is now that I've said that. I can't find the note right here, but I'm pretty sure Steven mentioned somebody uses a vocoder in this. We have some light guitar coming back in. The bass is giving us a nice moving line underneath all of this. It's interesting to hear crossfades in this. We had a little bit of that at the end of Hope. So we had a lot of pain to open this song. This is cyclical. This isn't going anywhere. This just is. There's a little bit of an extra accent. A little bit of an accent there to designate the beginning of the phrase, but otherwise it's just this one key pitch over and over. Limbo, a non-state or a state of non-movement, to be in between states with no direction, no momentum. This song's doing a really great job of that right here. Now, because of the bass guitar and the percussion, it does imply directionality. In a sense, we are creating tension here, and tension wants release. We didn't really have that with just the guitar. It built its own tension and release cycle in a rather static manner. It just felt cyclical, directionless. But the rest of the instrumentation is building towards something. See, that's definitely a guitar with some layers in it, stacked effects. I can hear the picking going on, even though it doesn't really sound, it sounds more synth-like. That's an interesting texture to throw in there. You know, I'm starting to think this isn't going to build into anything. We've added a couple of new lines here and there, some new sounds, but not really doing anything with it, which captures the feeling. Ooh. So we have inhales and exhales now, a very sharp distance from where we were at the beginning of Hope. Yeah, the breath that isn't so compressed down, that is genius. Trying to figure out what this represents. Part of it feels like intentional breathing, meditative breathing, in and out, controlled long breaths. But it sort of has just become white noise. At one time it sounded almost like whimpering. I thought it might go in the direction of crying, but it didn't. It calmed, and now we have this. Gorgeous vocal harmonies. Well, maybe not. There is a voice in there, but there's synths too. It's very calming. I think that lines up well with the meditative breathing. All right. Yeah. I do think Hope is my favorite of the two. But that's simply because Limbo does what it should be doing, which is not going anywhere. I mean, that's the whole purpose of being caught in limbo, whether that's, or the afterlife limbo, the place where you're not in the good place or the bad place, you're just in limbo, or just the general term for being between things in a transient state. You're not supposed to be going anywhere. You're just kind of stuck between moments, places, feelings. A song that's stuck in a idea that doesn't really go anywhere, doesn't really do anything that makes a lot of sense. Now, I do like, though, how Hope left us off with a growth, a gradual exploration into heavier, weightier, darker, grittier, fuzzier tones. And that led us to the opening of Limbo, which to me comes off as really aggressive, really loud and noisy and just heavy. It feels angry. I think that makes sense. I mean, the final lines of Hope lyrically were rather scathing. I think it makes sense to move into this more aggressive direction. As we leave that, though, we're just left with this idea, the single note on the guitar. Eventually we get a little bit of tension, but we come back down to the note. It is not going anywhere. This defines the final 15 minutes of this. Well, other than the final 2 minutes, it defines the middle 13 minutes of that song. There is growth. We do get drums, we do get bass, we do get the vocals on it, but it doesn't go anywhere. Its entire purpose is to sit there and be cyclical and provide a background of non-movement for the vocal line to come through. It is thematically appropriate. So much great synergy there, but it also, yeah, it's not my cup of tea. It takes a long time to get through what it's doing. So this is definitely something that I'm going to enjoy from a distance. And then we wrap it up, going from anger to limbo to acceptance to calm to beauty. This is the best part of the song, not just because I enjoy the harmonies here. I think it just sounds gorgeous, but there's also a lot of thematic energy here that you're gonna have to stick around because I need to touch on some other things before we get there to put it into perspective. Now, I mentioned we start off angry. Heavy guitars, heavy drumming, heavy bass, screams pushed into the background though. I think that's interesting. But what stands out to me here is the vocoder. For those who don't know, a vocoder is a way of digitizing a voice. I don't know if there's different types of vocoders, but the one I typically see has some sort of like plastic straw that goes from a keyboard to the mouth. You speak into it, you play chords, and it digitizes your speech somehow and plays it to the chords that you're playing on the instrument. It was the robot voice thing going on in the first part of this track. I don't know how to interpret this. I don't know how to understand its inclusion. I don't think I've ever heard post-metal, sludge metal, doom metal with a vocoder before. I don't even understand what I'm supposed to be listening to when I'm here. Everything else makes sense to me, and then there's this, and it's interesting because it pops up on the right and it just kind of bubbles in. It's got this bounciness to it where the pitches kind of come in a little under pitch and then hit the pitch it wants. And then when they fade out, the pitch drops as well. It sort of bounces into the pitches. I found that to be really interesting. I couldn't even tell what instrument it was for a while. It needed more volume before I could begin to hear that it's a voice and it's digitized, so it's a vocoder. But I don't know what it's supposed to represent. Everything else makes sense to me. That doesn't. But this whole section to me is anger. It is rage. It is finally coming to terms with what has happened. All right. Sticking with the surface level metaphor, the drowning. Right? We've tried to walk away from it. We've put it into the past, trying to get away from it. But dang, dude, you almost drowned. That's terrifying. And someone put you there. That's frustrating. Get angry at them. Yeah, 100%. Throw a chair. I don't know, dude. It's a valid emotion to have. Both from just combining all of this together, the idea of losing, the end of a relationship that you kind of built yourself around, and having somebody that by the end of it, you felt that they couldn't love anything, much less you. Why did you waste your time with all of that? Why'd they let you waste your time with all that? That's just double frustration right there. Yeah. So the anger, I'm glad they put it in here. I don't know if that's necessarily what they were going for, but that's what I get out of it. And I like how it's at the beginning of this process of acceptance. From there, though, we enter limbo. And this is just here. The lyrics are not in English. I don't remember what language the lyrics are in. I'll have to check that out when we look at them. But there's a softness to a lot of it. But it isn't timid. It isn't weak. It isn't breathy like we saw in Hope. It's just lighter, smaller. It builds, though. Continues to build. This whole section is growth towards nothing, interestingly. It doesn't go anywhere. But we do build layers, volume, intensity. It always feels like it's supposed to reach a point of eruption. It never does, though. By the end of the vocals, though, I don't even know if they're singing words or syllables. It is just ad-libs that constantly fluctuate right along the point that the vocals begin to crack. This is usually the point where fry vocals are introduced and used within. You know, when you're using your voice, I'm not a vocal coach, so like this is going to be, it's not going to be super accurate, and you're going to want to look more into this if you want to explore this. But the way I understand it, as you're raising in pitch, there'll be eventually be a point where your voice kind of cracks and you'll go from your chest voice into your head voice. Kind of get a pitch jump there. That crack where your voice shifts between the two, from what I understand, is kind of the area you want to reside within for fry vocals, fry harshes. And we actually see that here. There's a lot of vocal crack going on here, just the pitch shift, where she's kind of dancing around this area where it's the top of her chest range and the bottom of her head range. And just kind of flipping between them every once in a while in sort of a yodely kind of fashion before really pushing the compression into that area too and turning some of these into fry screams. It is an element of pushing the self physically to fully explore and express one's emotions here. This was emotionally powerful. I loved this moment. It's, to me, a feeling of being trapped and wanting to break out, wanting to get out of this limbo. It's also a little bit of pain in here. It's frustration. It's stuff you have to move away from. You can't heal if you're always focused on the negative. And this is where the third part comes in. All of that noise, the guitars, the bass, the drums, the vocals, the walls start closing in around it and it gets boxed in. And eventually it's like you're listening to the concert on the outside of the venue. You can hear parts of it, mostly just a low end thuddiness, maybe a little bit of reverb. All these feelings, all this emotion is put into a box. It is no longer who the person is. It is simply a part of them. It has been compartmentalized. And this is what I said, or what I meant when I said that it was very cool and genius to have, after all this compression happens, a new breathing coming in front and center, clear as day, very little done to it as far as production goes, to, as far as I can see, portray this as a reduction down. This is a portion of somebody. It is not being suppressed, it is not being pushed down, but it is not being fully explored at the moment. All of that rage, that tension, that stress, the anxiety, we're using meditation to distance ourselves from it and find something calming through this. It will always be a part of us, but it does not have to define us. From there, we have several minutes of just breathing. A little whimper that I really thought was going to go into sobbing, but didn't. I thought that was a phenomenal little detail, as if the emotions were going to be overwhelming for a moment, but that ultimately they got themselves under control again. And then the angelic vocals with the synth come in and the really beautiful chord progressions, a push towards calm, of resolution, of comforts, of beauty, of joy. Basically the opposite of everything we've explored so far. What a wonderful way to wrap this track up. The idea that no matter how terrible something can seem in the moment, we will always grow past it. We'll always improve ourselves, get better. It will become a part of our past. Sure, there's no removing that. It must be dealt with, must be understood, must be some level of acceptance with it, but you cannot let it dominate your life. That it's valid to feel these emotions, not even just at the moment, but through your life. But that it cannot define your life. You must find a way to live with what has happened in your past, no matter how much it hurt at the time. You've got to get back up, take that step, and move on. And the lyrics line up with that too. They say the sky fell, and I stood there, speechless. I didn't know how to find my way amidst the darkness. This sky, without light, the stars were dead. They had long since flown away, and only the abyss remained with me, heavy as tar, stinking of corpses. So I swallowed, I gathered, I absorbed. Now, I don't know how accurate these lyrics are. I said I was going to go check the original language, and I never paused to do that because I already knew the lyrics. But this song wasn't written in English, so I don't know how accurate they are, though. That's the thing. They're probably close. Google Translate's usually okay, but there might be a more accurate translation to it. Regardless, we have somebody who didn't know where to go from here. That after losing this relationship and being upset and angry and trying to find yourself after it, where do you go from here? And I think this lines up a lot with what I was talking about. Saying I don't know where to go. I don't have a way. There's no light. There's no stars. They're all gone. Going back to the idea of counting the stars in his eyes, she has no direction anymore. It says all that's left is an abyss. So I swallowed it. I gathered it. I absorbed it. It is me, after all. This is my history. You can't run from it. You can't avoid it. You just have to understand it. It's a part of your past. Figure it out and move on. And I think that's really what the lyrics are stating there. You can sit here in limbo forever wondering what to do next, but it's honestly a lot easier just to confront the pain, figure out how to heal from there, rather than just sit here wondering what to do next. And I think that's interesting that hope doesn't start with hope, but leans into that direction by the end. And Limbo actually starts in limbo, but finds resolution towards its end. These are my thoughts. Obscure Sphinx, Hope, and Limbo. Let me know what you thought of these tracks, if there's anything that stood out to you, anything you'd like to add on to what I said, or correct me on. Maybe you have your own interpretation of things. Please put all of that and any other thoughts you might have into the comments section. Above that, in the description box, you'll find a link to Linktree. Takes you here. You can find links to my music, ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord server, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three of those. All right, that wraps it up for today. I'll be back tomorrow, though, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. UTC, as usual. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.